Hello, everyone. I am Julianne Meyer. You are watching Own Your Wellness, and I'm excited to be here today. This is the show that almost didn't happen. You gotta love technology. Every once in a while, there are glitches and all that fun stuff, but that's how important you guys are. We made it here anyway. So, without further ado, let me introduce you to our amazing guest, Mimika Cooney. I'm so excited to have her here today. She is well, I'm just going to introduce you. Hello.
Hey, Julie, thanks for having me. This is going to be fun.
It is absolutely. I just even reading your bio again, it was so much fun because I love this idea of like a trainer for your mindset. I just think that it's a muscle. It needs to be and can be trained. So I love that. But without assuming that not everybody knows a lot about you, I'd love for you to share some of the things about yourself that you love people to know about you.
Oh, definitely. Well, I'm originally from South Africa. I was born and raised there, but I've been living in the Carolinas since 2006. So I've kind of become part of the furniture. But really, what I love people to know about me is, what I do now. And the tagline is, I'm your personal trainer for your mind. And that obviously conjures up a whole idea of what that is. And you could pretty much tell. I love to train people, especially in the area of Christian mindset, like biblically based, you know, um, wellness and mindset in terms of thinking about your thoughts. Like, okay, is this a beneficial thought? But this is a process, and the reason I do this today and why I'm so passionate is because I was a hot mess. I went through the issues and realized something's missing and I needed to fix it. And being the type A fixer and strategist, I'm like, okay, where's the problem? Where's the problem? Let's fix it, get work to it. So it's been a long journey, but I'm sure through what we're going to discuss today, we're going to unravel a lot of it. But just to introduce everyone to the concept, if they don't know what mindset is, it's really understanding your thoughts. And in a bigger term is metacognition, is thinking about what you're thinking about. So we're going to dive into that, I'm sure, in far detail today.
I like this idea of being the observer. Which thoughts are you having? And like you're sitting there watching your thoughts. It's a weird, mind-blowing concept.
Exactly.
Well, I'm curious just to start off with, there comes a point in people's lives like you or myself where we realize that, hey, maybe this thought is not serving me. Maybe this is not something that is good for me. What happened to you or like really opened your eyes that I can do something about this?
Definitely. Well, my whole story was, I was born and raised in South Africa. I met and married my childhood sweetheart, and I come from an entrepreneurial background. Like since I was 16, I had 4 different business ideas because I was like, yeah, I'm going to do this and do. So I've always been one of those get up and go, got to push through. And us South Africans are raised tough because our environment was, a lot of poverty, and you just have to be get up and go. And we have the saying called a boer maak 'n plan. In other words, there's no time to cry. You just got to pull yourself together. So that's kind of the ethos and the culture I was raised in, is like, you just got to keep going and got to keep going. And I did until I hit the wall. So my husband and I had started a business sort of the late 90s, and I'm dating myself here. And living in South Africa, there was a lot of political unrest and turmoil, and we didn't want to be financial prisoners. We wanted to be able to do better for our family. So we really wanted to get out of South Africa, and we found a way by taking our business. So at the time, both him and I worked in the company. We built an engineering directory on the internet. But people would be like, "What's a webby? What's a website? Is not a web, a spider's web. We're talking about something new." So, anyways, we had a lot of that, and then we decided. So we had our first child, and when I fell pregnant with my second, I was like, "No, we have to do this now." So we moved, started a new business, had another baby, and you would think in England we speak English, complete culture shock, right?
Mhm.
And within 6 months, we went through all of that. We weren't very clever about how we did it. We went there without any financial resources. So talk about pulling the kids out of the grocery store when you just can't pay the bill. You're like, okay, this is hard, right? But we were there for about 6 years, and we've always had this pull. Like, I had a dream when I was 5. Like, I said to my parents, I'm going to go live where Mickey Mouse lives in America. And I just had this thing, and I believe it's also part of what God puts in us, is that purpose-driven compass. Like you have this thing, like even my eldest daughter, she's had a thing about Spain and I couldn't understand it. This desire, this pull, this magnetism towards something that you know you're meant to do, but you can't seem to like put your finger on it.
Mhm.
And we do life and we move closer. We feel like we're edging forward. So for me, I always wanted to get to America. So we, took our business and decided we were going to move again within the space of 5 years. And
Wow.
we stayed. And then we had another baby. So I've had my kids in different countries. But through that process, like if I look back now, I just went from stress after stress after stress after pushing and pushing and pushing. So within the space of like 12 years, I never stopped to give myself time to breathe. And I was like, I'm fine. Of course I can do this. I don't care if it hurts. We just got to keep doing because we're tough, right? We don't give up. We just keep doing and go. Like the never give up thing, I took that way seriously
Mhm.
until I'd reached a point where my body physically fell apart. I hit burnout and breakdown. And it was really a combination of within a 6-week period of pushing myself with my business. And then my mother-in-law passed away from cancer, and that was a whole shock. And then my one of my kids was having a mental health crisis, and it's eventually like you eventually reach this point where you just say, I can't do it anymore.
Mhm.
Who's normally in control. It was such a foreign concept, but I've never experienced that before. Like, physical grief where your body aches and you're like, oh, I can't have a conversation. And I just felt like I had to take my foot off the gas because I had hit the wall big time. I had blown the head gasket and the wheels are flying off and it was a hot mess. So I closed my business and I just took a year out just to really chill and find myself and lots of prayer and fasting and figuring out what on earth I want to do because I was always just, oh, we'll forget about that, put that away, just keep going in this survival mindset. And it feels good at the time when you're working off like adrenaline, like you're getting stuff done, but
Mhm.
adrenaline comes at a price. It burns like physically the cortisol in my system. I was having stomach aches and headaches and my hair was falling out and not healthy. And I was ignoring the signs. I was going down the highway at 100 miles an hour, ignoring the rest signs. I don't need rest. I'm Superwoman. Of course I can do this. Who needs gas? I'm just going to keep going until I could no longer go. So I always say, but during those years, I was so much in denial that I had a problem. I was like, I'm fine,
Mhm.
I'm fine. And denial is one of those things that it's kind of a numbing agent. You think you're not going through anything now, but then something will always make you stop to realize something is wrong. And for me, it was the whole awareness, like, why do I find myself in this position again? Why do I keep burning myself out until I'm like, can't even function? And usually I'd get pushed myself to where I got sick and had pneumonia several times.
Mm.
So it's like literally when I'm on my back and I can't physically do anything, then I'm like, oh, wait, how did I get here again? Wow, it's interesting. I keep doing this to myself. So for me, it was that whole, like, I would say 12 years of denial. And
Mhm.
it took me a year of spending time in awareness, pulling off the masks and the hurts of the past and what I like to describe as the junk in the trunk that I just kept piling in, ignoring. It's fine, until it wasn't. And we will always, all of us are we live in the human condition. We're not superheroes. We are
Mhm.
human beings. We're not human doings. And I kind of got that all wrong. I kind of got my who and my do all mixed up. Like who we are is very different to what we do because we have this tendency when we meet someone as, what do you do? Like, that's not who I am. Like, I have
Mhm.
been a web designer, a coach, a speaker, a writer. I'm all the things, but that's not my identity. And what I'd realized, like, especially when I look back and I say I was a people-pleasing perfectionist on performance, crazy. And I'd realized I was always driven by this, like this engine that you got to do, you got to be perfect. You can't make mistakes. You got to show everyone you got it all together. And, what if they knew that you're not all fabulous and perfect? I'm like, oh my God, scandal if I'm not perfect, right? But I'd realized that I had been chasing this elusive, got to be perfect, got to perform, jumping through hoops. I felt like a circus clown, constantly just, you know. Um, but once I'd stopped to realize, okay, we have a problem here. What is the problem? I keep doing this to myself. Then I started asking the big question, why? Why do I keep doing this? And as I started to like unravel the yarn, I started to peel back and realize this all starts up here. It's the way that I
Mhm.
think about myself. It's the way that when I have an opportunity, I self-sabotage, or I have fear, or I don't want people to reject me, because I had a big issue with rejection, having, my childhood was filled with rejection and bullying and all that. So that's whole, I got to compensate, got to perform, got to show I'm smart, got to show I've got it all together. And eventually those little additions just end up like that. Like I always imagine them as like heavy rocks that we just keep pulling in our jacket pocket or in the trunk, and we just keep loading it. And eventually the weight is going to push us down. And the funny thing is, our bodies will tell us. They will scream, you stop, get me off the bus. I don't want to do this anymore. And, we all know without your health, you have nothing. When you're sick, laying on your bed, staring at the ceiling. And I had COVID twice, the first strain and the second, and I almost ended up in hospital. I was too stubborn to go to the doctor. But I have scarring on my lungs now. So I have to be extra careful because I didn't pay attention to, I'm fine. So now there's consequences, right? So really the long story short is, I being a driven, perfectionist, people-pleasing performer all my life, I'd realized it's not sustainable. And after taking that time out, and I call it the long night of the soul, dark night of the soul. And, I had to really, because I was forced to, I couldn't do it, but I'd realized it was the best thing that could have happened to me is for me to hit the wall, to realize I had to change. So in that process, I'd realized, as I was unraveling my issues, I'd realized there was a way to fix it. If I could figure out what was going up here that was driving the engine at such a pace, I could start to learn things, and things like, that stomach pain, that burning sensation, or that tightness in my chest, it's fine, I'll be fine, just take a headache pill. Now I've become a lot more intuitive, like, oh, wait, I can feel in my throat, like when I'm getting tense, I clench my jaw, or, oh, my shoulders are getting tense, like I'm holding stress. Like, what am I thinking that's causing my body? So it's this mind, body, soul connection. And again, there's a lot of stuff in the world, and, I'm a Bible believing Christian, and not that I'm bashing people over the head, but I intrinsically believe we can't exclude the spirit part of who we are, because we are mind, body, and spirit. Now, we do the diets for our body. We go to gym, we eat the food, we try the affirmations, and we try to fix our thoughts, but without that connection to your spirit, and which is your purpose and why you were born, which really begs the whole question is, we were made on purpose by a creator, on purpose for a purpose. And that is, I think, is intrinsically what's missing for people nowadays, is that spirit connection that says, who am I and what was I made for? And once I started asking those questions, I realized all the things that I had learned, like I got skills, but they weren't necessarily things I should be doing. I learned how to do them, and I forced myself to be good at it, but it didn't bring me joy. It wasn't in alignment with what I was intrinsically made to do. Like, I was always overriding my intrinsic, what I call programming. Like, I was made with certain DNA and certain propensities and personality traits that make things easy for me. But we've kind of raised in an environment where we think everything has to be hard. So as I started to dive in, I was like, life doesn't have to be hard. Surely I could find a way to do things that actually, and we call it flow, finding that flow when you're doing something that feels in alignment with you. And it's more than, it's bigger than asking, what's my purpose? So there's a lot of layers to it, but in summarize to all of that, my whole story is, and the reason I'm passionate about doing what I do is I want to help people avoid the burnout and breakdown. I want them to be aware and to see the signs and to make those adjustments before they hit at the wall and crash and burn. Because to fix a broke car is a lot more expensive than just to maintain it and get it, regularly serviced. So that's why I like to call myself a personal trainer for your mind, because as you alluded earlier, the mind is a muscle. And even if you've had years of, bad thought patterns and talking negatively to yourself or talking negatively at others, or, we think that we're born and we have to just be the way we are, and there's never an opportunity for change. But that's a lie. We all have the opportunity to change, whether you're 8 or 80. You can change your thinking, you can change your thoughts, and it all comes down to a choice. So anyone listening, if this is a big aha moment, definitely lean in, because I'm sure there'll be lots of questions from that. But that really summarizes where I'm at today and the mission and why I feel so passionate about what I do today in mindset.
I love that. There's a few different things that really stuck out to me when you were sharing. And one of those things is this idea of, having all these signs in your body. And we all ignore it. It's almost like it's common and a lot of people experience it. So we figure that that's what's normal. just because something's common doesn't make it normal.
I
Doesn't
even
mean
say if it's popular, I'm going in the opposite direction because clearly everyone's
exactly.
following something that I don't prescribe to.
And it does not have to be your reality. And I just like this idea of owning and paying attention to what's going on in your body, because it is an indication as to what's going on elsewhere in your thoughts, in your soul, all these other things. What are you not paying attention to? Your body is going to yell. And for me, and I just want to share this really quick. There was a time where I really had stopped listening to myself. And so I had no idea who I was, what I thought, how I felt, because I'd turned off any connection with myself. And there came a point where I was supposed to go back to school. And I literally had to look around my apartment to see what I liked. And I was like so surprised to notice in my kitchen, I had probably 15 books about nutrition and recipes and things like that. So it was interesting that I was like, oh my gosh, I had no idea.
Well, we do. We become blind to our own needs because we've
Yeah.
been told and drummed down that you just pay. It's the school system also does it. Is you don't speak up, you shut up and sit down. You don't
Mhm.
say what you want and what you think and what you feel. And we've taken that out of our culture and our schooling system. And we've stopped teaching our kids how to think and how to tap into who they are and have an opinion. So now when you become like a 40-year-old woman who's like, who am I? And I've lost myself. And I find this, I'm 47, so I've got 2 young adults and a teenager. And, there comes a time when, when the kids are young and you just kind of throw yourself into that and you have to just survive those toddler years. But eventually, I notice this happens a lot with women when they reach right in 40s. They start questioning, like they've lost their sense of self. I
Mhm.
sacrificed self for the kids or the family or the job or the work or the ambition or the money or whatever it was.
Mhm.
And then they don't even know what they like. So it's kind of a sad situation. But the good news is like you saying, the signs are always there. Like I had a similar thing about when I was rebranding my company, and I remember my daughter at the time was 7. I was like, I don't know what I should do. Like, what is my style? She says, Mom, have you seen your wardrobe? I'm like, what? She says, white, blue, and gold. I'm like, clearly you can see I'm on brand, right? And she's like, if she as a 7-year-old could see, I would clearly screaming brand, and this is what I stand for, and this is what I like. And like I look at my playlist or my music, or I look at my book Audible list, like there's a
Yeah.
thing, right? So I'm like hoping by the end of today's conversation, people can tap into that theme of what their life soundtrack is, whatever your secret sauce is, that it kind of like hope to just trigger that. Like if we can press a few buttons to kind of be like, hey, wow, that's interesting. I never thought about that. Sort of leaning into that, because the best thing you can ask is the question why.
Exactly. Exactly. I love that question. We do need to go back or go to commercial break. So we'll be back in just a moment. And when we come back, we are going to answer or actually talk about asking better questions and how to personal train your mind. We'll be back in just a moment.
When drug or alcohol addiction take over, things begin to disappear. Your friends, your family, and eventually, you. Recommended by Dr. Phil, New Method Wellness can help get your life back with individualized treatment plans for dual diagnosis clients. New Method Wellness provides the most highly credentialed treatment in a safe and welcome environment. Call New Method Wellness for your free consultation and ask about our national accreditations. Together, we can put the pieces back together.
Welcome back, everyone. So glad to have you here today. I haven't said hello to everybody who's watching us live. Thank you for being here. Let's bring back our guest, Mimika. Welcome back to the stage. So glad to have you here today. I'm glad we were able to make this happen because you've been absolutely fascinating. So,
Thank you.
something that I was really hoping that we could talk about before we jump into some answering or starting the conversation back about asking better questions. And my better question is, tell us a little bit about what I'm seeing here on the screen, because I know that you have your own podcast and you're doing all sorts of wonderful things, and I really want to help people know about who you are and what you have to offer.
Definitely. Well, as you can see, I've written the most recent book I've written is book number 10. It's Unstick Your Mind, and the subtitle is Shift Your Mindset, Develop Grit, and Break Barriers. And I'd say this is probably, it took me 10 books to figure this out. Okay, what I really want to say and what I really want to talk about and share. And after 3 years of research and going back to my story, once I started realizing there was a problem, and I really am a fix-it. I need to know how to apply things, and I'm a practical gal. Like, tell me practically how to do things. So the book is a great introduction if this is something you've never considered, or maybe you want to know a little bit more. The way that it's written, it helps to take these topics and explain them in an easy to understand format. Because believe me, I read lots of dry psychological papers and things, like digging and pulling out all the good stuff and presenting it in a way that if you want to know, like, hey, I want to change my thoughts, I want to change my habits, I want to change my life, this is a great way to go. Now, I also have my own YouTube channel called Mimika TV, and that's been going for about 10 years. And I have a lot of just different videos. But I always say, if anyone wants to connect and find out more, I have all the links on my website, which is my name, mimikacooney.com. And if you want to know the books of the show, and I have articles, free downloads, because I really feel like this is an area that we need more education, but it's one of those things. It's like peeling the paint, right? As soon as you peel it off, you're like, ooh, and you start to pull the thread, it becomes like, wow, this is interesting. Oh, and what about this? And so I definitely say, if this is your first foray into understanding that you can change your life by changing your mind, I definitely would encourage you to go visit my website and grab those goodies.
I love that. And for those of you who are watching, I endorse Mimika's YouTube channel as well. There's a lot of amazing things on there. So go check it out. It's definitely worth a look. She's got a lot of followers, and that many people cannot be wrong. I'm just saying. But, something that even in the title of your 10th book, and first of all, before I ask my question, 10 books. For those of you who are watching, 10 books. I've written a chapter in one, and that was a lot.
Well, hey, when I was 7, I always wanted to be a writer. And like those things where I never got around to doing it until I said, you know what? Today's the day. And it took me to figure it out, the format, the structure, like what I like to write about.
Mhm.
If you look at my collection, I started in, teaching photographers marketing, and then business stuff, and, teaching authors. But eventually, as I've started to find my groove, you tap into your voice and what you really want to say, and you write what really interests you. And I think that's what I always want to encourage people to do is, if there's something that interests you, just start to pursue it, start to push towards that. So like you said, you might have, say you're an accountant, but you've been interested in nutrition. Follow that thread. You'll be surprised where it takes you. So yeah, my goal is to write 100 books in my lifetime. So I'm only 10% there. So I've got ways to go. But I love the idea of books, because I love reading and listening to books. I feel you can learn so much. I think there was a stat I saw the other day that says if a book takes you 3 hours to read, it's basically 3 years of content that author has had to put, which is true. So my book, Unstick Your Mind, definitely it took 3 years worth of studying and editing and looking through the process and analyzing. So if you can read it in 3 hours, like I've just saved you 3 years.
I like that. I like that idea too. And it's what are you feeding your mind? I mean, we've been talking a little bit about personal training your mind, but what are you feeding it to? Because those two things go hand in hand. Are you filling it full of crap? Are you, watching things that are of no value, listening to things that are of no value, or just negative stuff? Or are you picking up Mimika's book and reading that and spending your time learning and growing and learning to ask yourself these better questions? And, are you helping yourself grow and be the next iteration of yourself versus being who you've always been? And probably, and this is true for most people, not happy with that person because you're not saying yes to yourself. So I'm just curious, Mimika, out of all your books, is this one your favorite?
It's like a child. How can you
Oh,
say
I
which is a favorite child, right? I always say my favorite book is the one I'm currently writing. And I have another two. Actually, I have another one that is coming out next week, but it's a shorter version.
Oh,
Because the way that I see books, I don't see them as like I'm going to do one and be done. What
yeah.
I've realized is that as I learn and grow, my interests start to learn and grow. And I realize as I'm learning something and I've accomplished something or I've been able to figure it out, I want to help people do that. So that's why I always feel like we're always a work in progress. So even though, I don't say, yeah, I've done one book, yay, I'm done. I'm like, okay, well, hold on. I wrote this book. This took 3 years. But what I'm doing now, in the example, this next book coming out is called How to Unlock the Mind of a Champion, which is basically taking one chapter, but going a little deeper and maybe like, let's see what that means. And I think that's the same approach we can have about life is, there's this big picture or this big concept of mindset we're talking about. You can't know everything at once. It's one of those things we do in layers, just like an exercise program. You can't go to the gym and start, lifting 100 weights. You'll hurt yourself. So I always think pacing yourself is important. So as you learn something, and here's another coaching trick, the key is to give your brain the gift of done. So when you do something, you achieve something, go out and throw a party, go and celebrate. I train all my students and all my coaches who work with me that you need to celebrate because we never do that as women. We're terrible. I'm like, yeah, I ticked it off my list. Okay, next. When are you turning around to celebrate? Like, hey, I listened to this video today and I've just had a light bulb moment go off that, wow, I can change my thoughts. Celebrate that. And I like to call it to press into the pause. Like, that was interesting. Wow, I've learned something new. So that's why I always like to encourage people. This isn't a once and done thing. This is like an exercise program, just like a healthy diet program. It's great when you're on diet, but as soon as you fall off the bus, then the weight comes back on. Or if you stop doing the good habits. And that's why part of what I'm trying to help people understand is that you're training your muscle and your mind to eventually be able to be strong enough to be a lifestyle of who you are. So and in terms of neuroscience, we call this, rewiring, because our brain is made of neural pathways and we have, electrical pulses that go around that often we think you can't teach an old dog new tricks. But listen, honey, I am proof that you can. Okay. That no matter your background, no matter your history, no matter your experience, and no matter your situation right now, there's always a do-over. There's always a big fat reset button. But it really just comes down to choice. Do you want to change? If not, fine. Go for it. Be yourself. I'll send you off with a hug. But if you do want to change, are you ready to change? And are you ready to make the choices that will require you to change? That is the key.
That is the key. Are you interested or are you committed? Are you a tire kicker or are you actually going to buy the car? I mean, and it's okay with either answer. Just be honest with yourself about where you are because it saves a lot of grief because when we say we're going to do something we don't, we kind of hurt ourselves and our self-esteem. But something that I wanted to reiterate too is this idea of celebration and celebrating each thing that you do because like you said, especially women, we do not stop and pause and take a look at the things that we've done. Plus, there is science to back up this idea that if you are doing something difficult or something that, is hard, if you put a cherry on top, you're going to be a lot more likely to do it again versus remembering how hard it was because you're going to remember it in a better light. So it won't be so difficult for you to do the next time. So there are benefits to doing that. Now, I'm sure you're not saying something to the effect of, say you're on a diet and you've done really well, so you're going to reward yourself with the sundae. That's not actually a gift.
Exactly. It depends on what it is, right? So
it does depend.
Yeah, we got to use wisdom, but the whole point is not to push yourself until you don't actually see that completion because then you killing your motivation. And motivation isn't something that you wait for. It's something you create. You become more motivated the more you same thing with confidence. You don't wait to be confident to do something. You do something to then feel confident afterwards. So it's kind of flipping the switch, right? We always think, I'm not motivated enough to study. I'm not motivated enough to do this, to go to the gym. Well, maybe you should go to the gym and then find your motivation there.
Exactly. And, the other one that I love to put is like, I don't have to take my temperature every time I'm about to do something. I don't sit there and go, should I brush my teeth today? I don't know if I feel like it. It's just something I do in order to take care of myself. So I love that idea of getting the motivation from doing the thing that you said you're going to do. So, I'm curious too, since you are an avid reader, who are some of your favorite authors?
Well, I definitely have a plethora of reading, but I do tend to stick to my genre, which is nonfiction. So I love Dr. Caroline Leaf, also South African, fabulous. She's got some great books as well on mindset if you want to. And she's a neuroscientist. So she's done a research. She knows the science of it, as well as Dr. Daniel Amen. And he has great programs as well with, his supplement and his wife as well. I love Tana's stuff with her. I actually have a recipe book, which I have yet to use. So meal planning is not my strength, but those are definitely some great tools as well. And obviously because of my entrepreneurial background, I'm always loving things about the neuroscience of flow. I also am a competitive figure skater, so I have that sports psychology aspect to what I love to do. So I'm always reading like business strategy and performance mindset, and I'm always looking for crossovers in different industries. And of course, as a Christian, I love reading Christian living as well, inspirational stories, faith-based stuff, Bible devotions, stuff like that. So I like to feed myself, my mind, my body, my spirit, my soul in all the areas and keep that. So yeah, that's my favorite things.
All the things. I love it. You're not a one-trick pony.
Exactly.
This idea of starting to ask ourselves better questions and, this idea how you said, well, why, you started asking these better questions because a lot of people tend to get into like this victim mindset and like, why is this happening to me? And my question is, why not me? Or what can I do with this is a lot more empowering than why is this happening? Because I can guarantee too that a lot of the reasons why won't satisfy you or take away that pain that you're experiencing anyway. So why are you asking?
Exactly. So there's a wrong way and there's a right way and a wrong way to ask the question why.
Exactly. So what are some of your favorite things to get down to the nitty gritty that you tend to ask yourself when you're trying to figure out, maybe something that is a little bit beyond, you're just trying to figure out an issue going on in your life?
Definitely. Well, I think there's two parts to this question. So I think, when we're asking ourselves questions, asking why do I behave this way and why do I react that way and why does life present me with the same things? That is a good awareness question. But then the other question is what? What can I learn from this? What will I gain from this after? Like you go to the gym, like, oh, wow, the why is stepping on the scale, like, oh, gosh, I've got 20 pounds to lose. I better do something about it. And the what is, how am I going to actually do that? I'm going to show up to the gym, do exercise, eat healthy, right? Mm-hmm. So we need to have this combination. And to go back to that question, well, that reference, the victim mindset, unfortunately, is so prevalent these days because we are very spoiled. Especially like I was raised in South Africa and I have a different worldview of the way that I see, especially here in the USA. And we have everything we need. And the problem with having everything you need is you don't need anything. So you stop doing the work. And that's why I always say to people, struggle is good. You need struggle. You need resistance. How on earth are you going to build muscle in your mind, body, and soul if you're not pushing up against resistance, if you're not having friction, if you're not having those difficult situations? Believe me, I've been through really hard things, losing people, money, stress of, immigration issues, business issues, like all the things. And that's just the human condition. We all go through things, but it's not that we're being punished and it's not that we're suffering. I always have to say, where is the joy and the lesson and the gold? I mean, that old saying, the silver lining to every cloud, right? And even if you're going through a hard thing, it's always going to be teaching and rubbing you up a certain way to refine you. Because a dull knife doesn't do any good. But when you are sharpened and, they say iron sharpens iron. So friction with the friends and the family, we all have one of those, somebody who drives you crazy. Like, okay, why is she driving me crazy? Why is what she's saying annoying me? Instead of me blaming her, let me hold up the mirror and ask myself, why do I react that way? Why do I get aggravated or annoyed or jealous or threatened or when she says that? And then we start saying, what is causing this thought process? And then you start to unravel the yarn and you start to pull back. Oh, I remember when I was 13, when I got that friend that I thought was a friend who ended up being a friend of me and ended up turning on me. I learned not to trust people. So when she makes those certain accusations, it's like my defense mechanisms go up. So again, it's that analyzing, like self-analysis, right? Is to kind of start to pull yourself back. But it comes with an open mind to wanting the growth, because not everybody's ready. Not everybody wants to look under the hood and start doing the work. So I always say this is an invitation. It's not a command. You are invited down to take this path, but you have to be willing, go willingly, and you have to be willing to do the work. So again, that's why I like to call myself the personal trainer for your mind. If you're signing up, it's going to hurt. There's going to be tears. You're going to get resistance, but you are going to come out fitter, smarter, and stronger than you've ever been before.
I like that. You're not, no false promises. No, especially in the United States. I've lived in other countries as well. And we are very spoiled here. And it's like we're all striving for this fluffy cloud to like hang out on, and there's going to be no anything bad happening and everything's fabulous. That gets really boring, first of all. So I like this idea though that you're saying this is how it's going to be, because this is the price to become and have what you want. So I like that. Anyway, we do need to go to another commercial break, so we'll be back in just a moment. And before we go, I just wanted to say Mimika is absolutely fabulous. I adore everything that she's been saying. She definitely speaks my language. And I just want to mention too, for somebody to be able to move to different countries with little children in tow and an entire family. I did it by myself and I thought that was hard. So imagine adding on an entire family. That I can't. If she can do that, we can do anything, right, ladies? All right, we'll be back in just a minute.
Welcome to E360 TV, the live streaming and on-demand destination for influential voices and enlightened audiences. We offer trending, grassroots, and purpose-driven content across a diverse range of interests. E360 TV is more than just watching programs. We offer the ability to interact with live shows connecting audiences to real, authentic influencers and storytellers while streaming to millions of devices. Real experiences. Raw conversation. One destination for it all. E360 TV.
Welcome back, everyone. I am Julianne Meyer. You're watching Own Your Wellness, and today's amazing guest is Mimika Cooney. Let's bring her back onto the stage. Welcome back.
Thanks for having me.
Yes. So here's something that I was thinking about during the commercial break that I would love to hear your thoughts on. Now, as women, we are sort of taught that there's only so much we can do, and we're supposed to put everyone and everything else in front of us, our kids, our husband, our whatever the case, our pets, whatever. Everything else comes first, and that's our responsibility to do that. And I know that there's a lot of people out there that are looking at you thinking, I could never do that. I could never. Who am I to put myself out there in such a way? Like, I don't have that kind of courage. And I just kind of feel like there's a different way of looking at it. And I'm curious what you would say to somebody who's like, oh, I can't do their version of what you've done.
Right. Well, the first thing I'd say is don't try to be somebody you're not. Don't try to walk in my shoes, because my shoes fit me for my path. They're not going to fit you. They'll hurt you, because they're not made. Like when you go try on a pair of shoes at the store, you have to find ones that are your style, that are comfortable, and are in your size. And I've always said this to women whenever I've worked and encouraged them, is that you need to find you in your lane at your speed, because the problem is we are so conditioned to compare, like even with social media and the hair. I mean, just the beauty industry itself is creating this like the standard of what a perfect woman is supposed to be, and we have this never ending cycle of pressure of you got to be, you got to be, you got to be. So the first thing I always say to everyone is just stop, pause, put the blinders on, and start asking yourself and looking internally, is like, who am I built to be? What am I built for? What are the things and the gifts and the talents? And oftentimes you will be able to see this even before you've reached the age of 10. Were you a chatty patty? Which in case I was, clearly. Were you a writer? What were your interests? And not to say they're just like a hobby interest, but what were a tendency you sort of went towards? Like, you normally can find like the kids who like to tinker around with things. Like I have a son who used to love the engineering, the Legos, and I was like, interesting. So he definitely is one of those thinkers who likes to problem solve. Then you have like my youngest one, who you put on the beat and she just couldn't stop jiving and bopping up and down. It's like, clearly there's some music creativity going on there. So we have these signs, but we've been conditioned through society and schooling and training and how we were raised to not even tune into who we are and what we were made for, that we just become what everyone expects us to be. Now, as women, like, I'm a wife, I'm a mom, I'm a businesswoman, I'm a friend, I'm a sister, I'm a coach. I do all the things, but I have to allow myself to step in and out of them as I need. Like, I'm kind of like driving the car, but sometimes, you need to change gears and you need to do things. So I always say is you can't compare your journey to mine. Like, the choices I've made have resulted in where I'm at, and not everyone wants the same path. Like, I could have very easily just been comfortable and stayed in South Africa and not pursued more, but I've always had that intrinsic drive to want to do more, but it comes at a cost, right? You have to sacrifice other things, and it comes down to asking yourself, what are you willing to trade? Life is a bunch of trades. Are you willing to trade time for money, relationships, peace? Like, for me, I was on such a mission to get the things and achieve the things. I was trading my health, my wellness, and my own personal time. I had no time for me because I thought, what? I'm a woman. I should be a hero. I shouldn't have to take care of myself. But here's the second part to this that we don't think about, is that, especially women, I always say women are the heart of the home. And if the heart is broken, the whole home is going to hurt. So if mom isn't taking care of herself, and even the statistics show that families that have alcoholic moms are the most severely traumatized and affected, because mom is the one who's keeping it all together. That if our hearts are broken, if our bodies are broken, if we're not taking care of ourselves, we are starving ourselves and everyone around us. There's a reason they tell you on the airplane to put your mask on first. It's not because you're being selfish. It's because if you don't have oxygen and you pass out, how are you going to help the kids? How are you going to help everyone else? So, and this is where I'm trying to get that alignment back for women, is to help them realize. And through my program and my coaching program, we teach our students this, is how to put yourself first. And sometimes my coaches love to say, you need to be selfish today. And Selfish is actually the best thing you can do, because if you take care of yourself, go take a nap. If get off social media, go for a walk or whatever the things, don't do it because you oblige or feel guilty to,
Mm-hmm.
because it's the oxygen you need. It's the food you need. It's the air you breathe. Like if you don't take care of you, you will starve yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You will eventually, give up and burn. And if you starve something, it dies, right? So I always got to say, and then the other aspect to this is I always say is we each have a calling and a purpose in life, that if you're not stepping up to be who God has made you to be, you are depriving somebody else who's already destined to be with you in your life, learn from you, walk with you, find something from you, that you're depriving others of their breakthrough. And that
Mm-hmm.
you got to shift your thinking and realize life isn't just about you. It's not about you. What you do, you're part of this big picture, and we all have a part to play. That if the one part isn't working, like in a car, like if you have the radiator go, or if you have one little tiny thing can put the whole car in the shop, and the whole thing cannot work from one tiny little wire or some misfiring. That if we all think of ourselves, as the human condition, and we all have a part to play. If we aren't doing our part, we're being a hero by not showing up, we're actually depriving everybody else. So, be kind to yourself, give yourself the oxygen and the food and the rest. And sometimes it doesn't mean you have to do it all at once. And I say, women have it all, but not at the same time. We have to allow ourselves to stretch the timeline. Like things will happen in life. Things are in our control. Some are without our control. But all we can do is adjust the timeline and our expectations. And I think that's really at the crux of what happens is we disappoint ourselves when we don't lose the weight, when we don't achieve the goal, when we don't make the money, because we've made up this expectation of a timeline, a success date, or by this time, if I haven't done this, then I'm never going to do it. Like, what if you just stretch the timeline and say, I'm going to write that book. I would love to have it done in 3 months, but maybe I need to give myself 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
You get there. I would rather you get there in one piece, even if you got there slow. There's no speed required in life. And I think that's exactly what society is trying to make us feel. I mean, social media is just, it's hacking our brains to keep us like constantly. I always imagine it like us sticking our finger in the plug, getting electrocuted. Our head is hurting. Like, take your finger out the plug, step away, like slow it down. Like those movies we see where, they use that camera effect where you can see all the angles and all of a sudden it's like you see life in 3D, like hit the pause.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing's going to fall apart. What's the worst thing could happen? Really?
Exactly.
And then
Exactly.
make your decision from there.
No, I love that too. And you will make a better decision from the pause because you have actually stopped and taken a moment. It never hurts to breathe. In fact, it keeps us alive. So I like this idea of, having the pause and using the pause to really see things clearly. We are running a little bit low on time. We only have like 4 minutes left. So I'm just curious if there's anything that you would love to share with the audience that maybe you haven't yet, or a point that you'd love to reiterate.
Sure. Well, as I mentioned earlier, this is a topic that, requires us to take a little bit of time. It's not something you're going to get overnight. And what I want to do is encourage everybody, if you're listening and watching this, is just to reach out and to find those resources. You just need to take one step. That if there's something that that from what we've talked about today resonates with you and you want to learn more, lean in by taking up the resources. So go to my website, mimikacooney.com. You can grab the copies of my books. Watch the YouTube, or even if it's not my book, go and download something that interests you, like a podcast or a book. Start taking some action, because nothing happens in action. And I'm very much a proponent for take some action today. And sometimes action is not doing anything. So in other words, if you're running yourself ragged, maybe taking a nap is actually the best action you can take.
I love that, because you're actually taking care of yourself. Your body is saying, I need some sleep. I mean, you can't even think as well when you're tired. So I love that. And then I'm going to pop up your website again for everybody who hasn't written it down or gone to it yet. And then also your other handle. So
On
people can
social media.
find
Yeah.
you
If you look
at-
me up on social media, you'll find me. My name's very unique at Mimika Cooney. I love to hang out on Instagram. I mean, I pretty much have an account on everywhere, but I would say the best place where I update content is Instagram and YouTube. So I have my own YouTube channel there. And I say, I always love feedback. Always love to hear from people like, of the content and the stuff we've talked about, what resonates with you. So reach out to me and let me know you saw me on today's show. I'd love to know, because if we, by actually vocalizing the things that we learn and we say and those aha moments, that's how we learn and grow. Just learning this and putting it in the backseat and going, oh, that was nice, and never doing anything about it isn't going to change. So definitely take some action today.
I love that. One of my very first coach that I paid, and it was a huge amount of money, so I got a loan to do it. His thing was that when he became a Zen monk, and one of his things was he was going and buying all these books about meditation and wondering why it wasn't working, and he finally realized, oh my gosh, I'm reading about it, but I'm never doing it. So. So yeah, I like this idea of taking that step forward. But anyway, Mimika, I just want to say thank you again for being on the show today. It has been an absolute pleasure. You are so much fun, great energy. And I'm going to read your book. So your 10th book.
I appreciate that. And if you read the book, I would so appreciate a review, especially like on Amazon and Goodreads. That's how you help us authors out, and you help us get our books seen out more often. Rate, review, subscribe, join the channel, click to, all the good things, take that action. And especially for Julie as well, like let her know, give us some feedback. So yeah, I encourage that.
Take some action. All right, everyone, that is all the time that we have for today. Thank you so much for being here, and we will see you again very soon. Enjoy your week, everyone.